Okay, so this is the exercise of today. We are going to be replicating this carousel with the functionality and the scale up, scale down stuff. So let's start by actually doing some HTML and CSS, some simple one. So let's try to create this structure in an HTML with its CSS, okay? I have already done some wireframe for you. So this could be the wireframe. This could be what would you do to, which element would you use to do this? Maybe an H1. This could be an H2, 3, 5, or whatever you want to. This will be what? A div, span, an image, right? And we can treat the image as a block element, so we are fine. And here for that, maybe we have a container. So one div, this light blue one, and 3 small boxes there. Okay? 3 divs inside another div, everything inside another big div, and that's one slide for the carousel, for the slider. And if we just replicate that and change the text and the images, we will have the rest of the carousel, okay? For the icons, we are going to use a library called Font Awesome, okay? Let me just zoom a little bit. So this Font Awesome is just a font that you add to your project. Let me show you where that is. I will open the same file that you have right now in your computer, so it's just assets. So if you open the HTML, it's rather empty, so we don't have anything on the body but the logo. And in this part, we have a link to Font Awesome. It's just a CSS, right? Just as the other CSS that we linked. It's an external CSS file, and that's it. So if you add this CSS Font Awesome file, you can use the Font Awesome icons as a font. So Font Awesome is just a new font type, but instead of having letters, it has icons. Okay? So if you just add it.
What is integrity?
What?
What does integrity mean there?
It's just a key for checking that you are downloading the correct file and you are not getting a fake file instead. Okay? So it's just a key, and they check that against its secret key, and if it matches, it's the correct file. Okay?
Yes.
Now, and then if you go to Font Awesome and go to icons, you will get the whole gallery, and you can just look for some name of some icon and add it inside your project. And we will use that in a second for building these icons here. Okay? And the rest is just the standard stuff that we normally use here. So let's try to actually make this in HTML. Let's do it together. So we said we were going to have an H1, an H5 maybe, and then some image, one div here with 3 divs inside, some Font Awesome for the icons, some paragraph here, maybe some right border black in the first 2 divs, and we don't have it on the last one or something like it could work. So let's start with the first one. Div. I will just call it div for now. This is like the main container. Then we said we were going to have an H1. Let's write this text for now. So Tucson. And then let's use an H5. Could be whatever. But let's use an H5 for that one, and let's just write some text. Then the image. You already have all the images there. So this one is a Tucson. That's it. And then some specs. This will be the container for these 3 boxes, which are the specifications of the car. And inside there we will have 3 divs with some icons and some text. Sorry, just 3. And the text is this one. And then this, and I will just make a pause here. Yep, and now we want to use that style CSS file to actually change a little bit the way this looks. So let's go there. Here you can see that I am actually grabbing the font files. And you can do that. What I actually did was sniff around here because I wanted this nice font type that they use. So I just inspected and I was looking here to see if I found the font files. Okay. Since I didn't find them there, I just inspect the code of the page, open the CSS. It's minified and it's a mess, but I did find the name of the font, which is this one, Hyundai Sans Head. So I just search for it, and I found a bunch of font family. Yeah, that's just applying that text somewhere, but I want to see where they actually got the files, right? So if you keep looping, you will find somewhere that the EOT, the TTF, the WOV files, and I just went to that URL and download them and add them here. Since this is an educational project, yeah, it's fine to do it, and I'm showing you where I did, and I just add them there as TTF and so on. So here I am creating that font family and having it. It's just like going to Google Fonts and grab the font file, right? Just like I'm loading it locally. And the name will always be Hyundai Sans Head. The font weighs, I have two files, so a medium and a regular, and I specified a weight of 500 and 300. So that's the font I have available, and I'm applying that into the whole web page. Now, and I put the logo there already. So let's change that a little bit. If you check that right now, it should look, let me open that file, something like this. Why do I have so many files? Okay, so it should look something like this. Let's just center the stuff, remove some of the margins here, and also add the icons there, okay? So for search the store, let's go back to the HTML for a second, and let's give this a class so we can style it. So this will be a car item, right? So I will give it the class car item. And we have an H1 and H5, the image, the specs class with divs. Let's add the icons already. So inside here, before the paragraph, I want to have the icon. Now, if I have an image, I could add it as an image, but I will use the font awesome instead. For the font awesome, it's quite easy. You can use an I element, or an span element. They recommend the span one, so let's go with the span. So I'm adding a span before the paragraph, and since I want to do that also here and also inside this one, I will do it all in one step. So let me delete that. So I want one here, and I do want another one inside this one and another one inside this one. So remember how to make a multiple selection? So in brackets, you can click Alt-Shift, and in this case, the down arrow key to go down 2 rows twice. So I select 3 rows, and now I can create an expander. Let me give it the correct class already. So the class for the font awesome is FAS for font awesome, and then FAS for a hyphen and the name of the icon. So I will just close it there. And we still need to add something there. So as you can see, I'm just, and when I want to go out from this multi-row selection, I can click escape. Then I go back to normal. Or you could just copy and paste this on the 3 rows if you want to. I'm just adding that. And let me just finish by adding the correct class here to have different icons. And then I pause the video and wait for it. So if you go to Font Awesome, or if you just Google Font Awesome and go to, I think it's fontawesome.com. Yep. And if the internet works. So you just go to icons here, or you can search for icons there already in the homepage. One of them was something like this symbol, and the name of the symbol is dumbbell. So you just add here the name, so dumbbell, for example, and that will get me that icon there, okay? And if you need, I don't know, some phone icon, you can just search for stuff there. So I will add this phone volume in the second one. So this one will be phone volume. Yeah, I'm just looking for the names here. in the font awesome page. And then the third one will be, I don't know, I want this Wi-Fi symbol and it's called Wi-Fi. So I will write Wi-Fi. Let me save this and show you how it looks like. Now we have, we don't have the icons there. Why? There should be. It is FAS. So if done, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Let's double check here inside font awesome, how to use, and then basic usage. And it's FAS, FA. Okay, so I have one S here. It's just FA for font awesome. So first FAS, and then another class and the name of the icon, which is FA / and the name. So that should definitely take the icons there. And you can see them already. So I have some icons. Since they are a font type, if I wanted a bigger icon, what property should I change? No? How do you make type bigger?
Type?
No.
Font size.
Yeah, font size. So if I just change the font size of this div, this paragraph text will be of that size, and also, or this icon will be of that size as well. Okay? So let's just try that out. If you style, those are inside what? Inside specs and divs, right? So we could write something like specs div and just change the font size. I will make it enormous right now, so 100 pixels, and we have huge font and also a huge icon. So since they are just plain fonts, you can play with that. Let's leave that at 12 pixels and a font weight of 300. So they look a little bit lighter and small. Now let's center the content, because I want all this center within the slide. Remember, this will be one slide, okay? So the wrapper is what? Car item, right? So I can write something like car item text align center. That will center all the block elements with a display block or inline block inside the div. So they are centered. They look horrible, but don't worry, because later on this will be just one slide. So it's fine for them to be centered within the wrapper. Okay? Let's just get rid of these margins here for H1 and H5. So whatever you want to, really. H1, H5, no margin. That will put everything more snug there. And H5 should be lighter. So font weight 300. That will make this font lighter. And yeah, it's enough. We shouldn't be super perfect here in the design. We want to focus on the functionality. So let's just leave this for now. Let's just make this to be in one slide, because we need those 3 boxes with the lines here. So we could either float the elements. They are inside these divs inside specs, right? We could float them. We could make them change their display to inline block. In fact, this will be a table cell with a vertical align of middle to vertical center the content. This is another way. Since we have just text inside it, because the icon is a text right now, or we could treat it as a normal text, this will center the content inside that div.
What was the table cell?
Yeah, for using this vertical align middle. So this works like in an Excel cell where you vertically center the content. So you are treating the container as a cell, actually, right? To make this happen. Right now, it should be something like this, and we do need to center that container, which is the specs one. So we don't have anyone for just specs. But specs, the width should be something like maybe 80%. This should do the trick. Not quite. Let's see wide. So we have, okay, so let's change the they don't fill the container. As you can see here, we have these 3 divs inside the specs, and then we have the specs one, and they should fill the container, right? Probably, or if I don't want them to be, yeah, they should probably. So how do I make them fill the container? So we could give them a width of 33, maybe, %. Let's see if that changed them. Looks like it changed something, so they are bigger, but they are not quite filling the container. These have an inline block. You should also have an inline block. Let's just center the content here. No, this won't center them because they have this width, and this more because of this one. Yeah, but I don't like that much, because then I lose my vertical align middle. That won't work there on a display inline block. Let me just sneak peek to what I did to gain some time here. There were with table cell middle with that width, so we are fine on that one. It's this one, right? So this is the border. We're just missing that border, but the problem is here on the specs. So with an inline block, and I didn't mess with the, yeah, I did mess with the width. So it's what I have there. Let me just pause the video to save you some time. For now, let's just remove this width here. That will center them correctly for now. And since this one, since they have a display inline block, both of them, and they fit on the same row, we want this image to grow and fit the size of the container. Since it's the only image we have, it should be quite easy, because we want to change, this image here, right? Since it's the only image inside car item, we could write something like car item image, and the width should be what? Maybe 100%. That will make it grow to fit the container and move the next part to the bottom. Sure looks awful, but remember, later on this will become just one slide, so this will be more or less the final size. Yeah, it looks okay. So just car item image, and then we are done with the layout of the slide. We don't want to make it more complicated than that, and we already did some HTML and plain CSS. Yep. Yeah, sure. Now when we have, I just copy and paste the car items, change the names and the images for each one, and now we can convert this into an actual slider. Now, for this exercise, I'm going to use the owl slider, or owl carousel. It has its own page. You don't need to go there because I already downloaded the files, but what I did was click here on download. That will get me a zip file, and that zip file will have a folder in it that said this for distribution, okay? Inside distribution, I have the JS file and the CSS files that I need according to the instructions that you have here. So if you go to docs, it tells you what to do. So you need the 2 CSS files, jQuery, and the JS file, and that's it. So I got the JS file from here, the CSS from here, and here, and I copy them and paste them, the CSS here, as you can see, along with this GIF file, and the JS here. You don't need this custom one. The JS here, along with the jQuery one, okay? And then in the HTML, you already have the CSS added, okay? So we have the CSS, and we have the JS file already in the folder, but we need to add it here. And we also need to add jQuery that we also have already in the folder, but not added in the HTML. So we go where?
Script.
Yeah, but where?
After the head.
No.
Hasta abajo.
Yeah, it's better in this. Go before the closing body tag, and then we will add what? jQuery first,
Yes.
and then the script carousel later. So JS is this one. So this is the bottom of the page. The next step is to set the HTML. Now, we have most of it because we already have all the slides. But as you can see here, we have all this. But we still need kind of a wrapper, okay? And here in this plugin, the wrapper must have at least the class owl carousel in it. We can add some other classes for triggering, but it should have this class inside it, okay? So in our code, we don't have that, right? So we need to wrap these car items inside one div. So I will just create that div here. The class will be owl carousel. And then it should not close here, but it should close rather at the end, yeah, below these ones. And now I can just tap those inside them to visually see that they are wrapped inside this div that has the class owl carousel in it. Okay?
Yes.
So now we have everything ready. We have the correct files, the correct CSS. We have the structure. And we also have the jQuery and the JS for the carousel to work. Now we just need to trigger it. And we trigger it with some code in it. Okay? So just as we did with the, I don't remember if we previously used the PX slider or the slick slider or one of those. Yeah. So we actually also did this, right? And the next step, if you follow the instruction, is just call the plugin. So tell it on which slide to apply the method owl carousel that will actually convert that wrapper into a carousel. Bless you, okay? And we typically wrap this inside a document ready to wait for the DOM, the document object model, to be already rendered and available on the browser. So, script, and we could use some jQuery for this document, ready event, trigger the function, that, and then here we just init the carousel, hit carousel. And we have a wrapper, right, with the class owl carousel. Then we just fire the method owl carousel in it. And that's all we need. So it's actually pretty easy in terms of code. We barely need some coding skills for this. We basically copy and paste everything. And if you try that out, now you should have something like this with the default, and you should be able to drag it, right? This is the default configuration for owl. Look for any errors on the console if something doesn't work, and then we move from there, okay? I will pause the video here. What this basically does is just fires the carousel with the default options, okay? Because we didn't specify anything different here. If you check the API for the carousel, you will find more information about how to change stuff, okay? We will do that in a minute, but for now, what we want to do is actually change a little bit the styling of things, because we want to match this functionality, okay? So yeah, of course, we should change also the H1 size and stuff, because ours is miserably small. But other than that, the main difference is that just the center card has the specs information and the price, and the ones at the sides are hiding that information. And once this one gets into focus, it should have this growing effect on it, and we should fade in the information and then fade it out when he leaves, okay? So the easiest way of doing this, thanks God, the carousel already thought about that, the guys that made the owl carousel, and they add dynamically a class with the name center to the item that's on the center. So right now this div has the class center, but if I click on that one, and you can check that they actually use the owl carousel for this side. So let me see if I can get this to 2 autos or 3. Okay, this will be super small. I don't know if you will be able to see it, but this one has the class center in it, okay, right there. and this one doesn't. This one has the class active, both of them. And as soon as I just click this button, this one will have now the class center, and this one won't. So if I click on that, now this one got the class center somewhere, or not that one, but the one in the center. Where are you? Lost you already. So this one has the class, or the wrapper. This one has the class center in it. So we can play with that to actually make this functionality. So what is different between the center one and the other ones? So the center one should be bigger and should be displaying the price and the specs, and the other ones shouldn't. So let's just first hide it from everyone, okay? So if you go to the CSS, the specs is this wrapper here, right?
Yes.
So we could hide it with a display none. Since we want to animate the effect or fading in and fading out, it's better to play with the opacity rather than the display, because the display is not animatable. You cannot animate from none to block in a natural way, but you can animate the opacity from 0 to 1, okay?
Yeah.
So if you go opacity 0, this will hide the specs of all of the cars, okay? So if you just save this and refresh, you shouldn't be seeing this. We are seeing some dots in here. These are the dots of the carousel without any styling. We can hide them as an option in the carousel. Let's hide them because they look super awful. So this is a carousel with default options. You can add some options inside these parentheses if you open and close curly braces. So I just open and brackets auto close for me the curly brace, and I'm just hitting enter to enter there. And here I can specify one or more options that I want to change on the carousel, right? For example, if you put items 1, you will get just one item on each slide. If you change items to 6, you will have 6 items on the carousel, okay? If you change loop to false, the carousel won't loop. You will start on the first item here, and you will end with the last one, which is the ionic, and I cannot move forward. But if you put loop to true, the carousel will loop endlessly, so I can wrap it and it will start again from scratch, okay? So you can play with many options. Maybe loop through is okay, and we want to hide the dots, so dots false. See how I am separating the first value from the second one with a comma, but we don't write a comma on the last one, okay? So this should hide the dots that we used to have here. Now it looks okay. Now let's also hide the price from all of them, right? What was the name of that tag for the price? Remember? It was an H5, yes? So we could also add an opacity 0 to that guy. And that will also hide the prices for everyone. So we now just have a carousel that looks like this. Then what? We want to make them all smaller. We can play with the scale of the divs. Which div? The container. We want to make everything smaller. What's the container? The car item, right? For each slide, we have a wrapper div with the class car center. So you can play with the the transform, and you can play with the scale. So scale 0.5 will make all the divs half the size. Yes? So if you refresh that, now the slides are kind of small, okay? I don't know if they play with the opacity. No, they didn't. So, and now we know that the div that's on the center will always have the class center on it, okay? So how can we work with that to make this div bigger and to show the H5 and the specs? So we use the class center, right? And then we change stuff. For example, H5, what we want to do, opacity 1, right? Yes?
Yes.
Just on the center ones. So that will actually, it should work, and if not working, why? H5, opacity 1 on the center. Let's just double check that in here. So it's an H5. Car item. There's an active on it. Okay, so I'm still missing some values here, probably the center one. Center true. Let's see if that helps. Yep. So in order to tag the center item with the class center, you need to tell the all carousel to do it. So center true will actually add the class center to the item that's on the center. And that should get you something like this. Now it looks super small, I know. We are going to change that in a minute. Let's also change that, okay? Let's change the scale of what? Car item, right? So center, and also the item inside it with the class car item, we want to change its scale to 1. Yes? So we are, the car item that has the class center on the wrapping div will be displayed at 100% in size. That helps. Looks super awful because you can see that looks like the car is jumping in front of me. So we should animate that change of scale. And for doing that, on the original div, in this case the car item, where we first added the 0.5 scale, we should tell it that it should have a transition on its properties. So you add a transition. You could specify the property that you want to animate. In this case, what do we want to animate? The transform property. So you could write something like transform, and then the time you want to give it. If you don't specify the property, it will try to animate any property that changes. Okay? So normally you will find it this way. So this will, now the change from scaling from 0.5 to 0.1 will take 300 milliseconds. Okay? And you will see that the animation is way better. It starts looking okay. Let's also turn on the specs, right, that we are missing. So those are the, it's something like this one, right? So we could write something like center specs, right? This should show the specs for each car. If you watch carefully, you will see that both the H5 and the specs are not animating, they are not fading in, rather they are jumping into our eye, okay? So you should know how to change that already. Okay, sorry for that cut. And now that this is working, I don't know when did I stop? But this is what we have there. And for making things happen, we just added these center classes in the CSS in case I didn't got them on this movie. Now we are going to add some responsiveness, and for that, since I'm not 100% sure about how to write it, I will just look for all carousel responsive as I did a while ago, and here you have the file. So yeah, it's responsive, column there, curly braces, and then you just set some breakpoints. So this will go from 0 to 479. You will apply these options. And then from 480 to 767, you will apply these options. And then from 768 up to whatever, you will have these options there. So we just want one breakpoint, right? So it's something like from 0, it's like this, another column there. We want something, and then from, I don't know, 600 pixels wide, we want some other thing. So here we know we want items 3. Is that the correct way? Yeah. Looks like it is. Okay, I'm missing a comma here. Sorry. And here we want items 1, right? So we are telling it from 0 to 599 pixels wide, you should show only one item. And from 600 up, you will show 3 items on the carousel. Yeah? I will just show it how it should look like, and then I stop the video and wait for it. So here we should see no change. And as soon as you approach, well, here we are already in the 1 by 1, so it's working. That should happen exactly when we change from 600 to 599, okay? So we are changing from 600 to less than 600, and the carousel is responding to that, changing from 3 items to 1 item. So to finish this exercise, I added these events, or I added this code. Let me walk you through it, okay? What it actually does is it adds the functionality of being able to click on the item. So if you click on that item now, it will move it, okay? How did we do it? Well, this is just a variable, but instead of writing this, but you could erase that already if you always look for this item. So rather than typing this, you could write this, and that's it. And also here, right? So instead of that's why they use it. They put it on a variable. In case you will change that later on, you don't have to change it everywhere. You just have to change it here, right? So we added 2 events to the carousel. So we said, okay, to each of the children of these elements, who are the children of this wrapper? The item card divs, remember? So each of them will have a data position. So it's adding a data value dynamically. So each of them will have a number, 0, 1, 2, 3, in order, okay? And every time you click on them, you will read that value and then trigger the to-all carousel. So you will jump to that slide. So each slide now will have, and if you inspect it, you will see it. Let me just finish with this idea. Each of them will have inside it a data position, as you can see here, with a number. So when I click on this item, it will basically jump to that position on the carousel. Okay? Let me stop the video there.